Hello, my name is Al Risch. I'm the Executive Director and one of the founding fathers of the Friends of Tuckerman Ravine, a newly formed partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. Our goal is to preserve and protect a highly valued portion of the White Mountain National Forest for the enjoyment of future generations. The video you are about to watch offers a few glimpses into why this is such a special place to so many outdoor enthusiasts. Please sit back and enjoy the mystique of Tuckerman Ravine.
In the heart of the White Mountains of New Hampshire lies the highest rock pile in the Northeast, Mount Washington, on whose summit has been recorded the greatest wind speed ever of 231 miles per hour. Mount Washington has lured thousands of people over the years to explore its gullies and ravines, the most famous of which is Tuckerman Ravine, named for the world-famous botanist Edward Tuckerman. Mr. Tuckerman spent much of his life exploring the cracks and crevasses of Mount Washington, finding and recording over 1,000 different species of lichen found around the world. The White Mountain National Forest that surrounds Mount Washington is a treasure trove of natural recreational challenges that far surpass man-made attractions such as Disney World or Disneyland. It is there for the enjoyment of one and all at no cost, only requiring personal effort to meet those challenges. A couple of old mountain men, Brad Ray and Al Risch, decided one day over a cup of coffee at Hermit Lake Shelter that there was a need to preserve the most heavily used portions of this recreational mecca for future generations. So began the nonprofit corporation of Friends of Tuckerman Ravine. The Friends of Tuckerman Ravine was founded to provide citizen support to the USFS in order to preserve and protect Tuckerman Ravine and the Cutler River drainage area, to promote the continuation of its historic uses, to organize, fund, and manage projects, publicity, education, and events for the purposes of this association, and to provide public input for legislation and regulation. The mystique of Tuckerman Ravine has lured skiers and climbing adventurers to its head wall and gullies for over 3/4 of a century. As early as 1925, skiers such as Hutman Joe Dodge, photographer Winston Pote, and Al and Herb Seiss threaded the narrow footpaths linking the slopes of the ravine to Pinkham Notch. It wasn't until the 1930s that former Olympians and Dartmouth skiers, Charlie Proctor and John Carlton, dared adventure over the 50-plus degree headwall and inadvertently founded extreme skiing. The ravine was the site of the first ever giant slalom race, the infamous Inferno, the Eastern Downhill Championships, and the Olympic trials. Steeped in history and rich alpine skiing tradition, and reinforced with legends like Tony Matt's Shush of the Headwall to feed the mystique, the ravine became the spring mecca for thousands of skiers in the next 7 decades. Today, the Tuckerman mystique is threatened by overuse and shrinking federal support for the United States Forest Service, who have managed and protected the ravine since the early 30s. The explosion of skiing in the 70s, snowboarding in the 80s and 90s, and the popularity of winter climbing have further challenged the fragile alpine environment of the Cutler River Basin. Education, safety, and environmental protection issues have become paramount to preserving the integrity of the Tuckerman Ravine experience. Short-term goals of the Friends of Tuckerman Ravine are to establish a public and private partnership for funding support, to coordinate safety, prevention, and education programs, to implement short-term solutions to the parking shortage in Pinkham Notch, to create a volunteer network to implement projects and programs, and to coordinate a trail maintenance program for the Cutler River Basin. Already accomplished has been the expansion and upgrading of the handheld VHS-UHS communication system. Long-term goals of the Friends of Tuckerman Ravine are to construct a functional two-way trail system between Hermit Lake Shelter and Tuckerman Ravine, drill a deep well year-round potable water system, develop a long-term solution to the parking problem in Pinkham Notch, expand the base facility of the USFS to include a first aid facility and vehicle maintenance building, establish a capital fund for the purchase of an enclosed first aid ambulance to mount on a snowcat, improve and expand the first aid cache in Tuckerman Ravine. In order to raise much-needed funds and to develop an awareness of Friends of Tuckerman Ravine, the first annual Son of Inferno Pentathlon was held on April 21, 2001, with perfect weather conditions for the occasion. Hundreds of participants and volunteers and thousands of spectators were on hand for the finish of the pentathlon that ended with a skier hiking up over the famed head wall to the east fields and then skiing back down to the finish line on the floor of the ravine. This was the last leg of 5 events: the run, the paddle, the bike, and the hike, which had started in the Mount Washington Valley and progressed its way down the Saco River through North Conway and back up to Pinkham Notch and into the ravine. The race was so well attended and was so much enjoyed by all that the second annual pentathlon is in the planning stages for an enlarged format to be held on the weekend of April 19th through the 21st, 2002. Friends of Tuckerman Ravine is a public-private partnership with the United States Forest Service that stands poised and confident at the beginning of this new millennium to preserve and protect the continuation of the historic use of Tuckerman Ravine. Through volunteer projects, educational programs, and legislative support, its goals are to assure another century of legends, myth, and mystique. Won't you join us to preserve this wilderness experience for your children and theirs, so that there will always be an alternative to the man-made adventure parks?
Now is the time for you to join with a growing group of individuals and corporations to preserve this wilderness experience for future generations of outdoor enthusiasts, and always offer an alternative to the man-made adventure parks.